Salam sejahtera, anda bersama saya Rizal Zulkapli dan ini AWANI Global. Hari ini kita akan bincangkan berkenaan dengan lawatan Perdana Menteri Jepun Yoshihide Suga ke Jakarta. Dalam lawatan tersebut, beliau menyatakan bahawa ASEAN is key to achieving the free and open Indo-Pacific and Japan is committed to contribute to peace and prosperity. Untuk membincangkan perkara tersebut dan juga pelbagai lagi berkenaan dengan hubungan Malaysia dan juga Jepun, kita bersama dengan Duta Besar Jepun ke Malaysia, Tuan Yang Terutama Hiroshi Oka. Your Excellency, thank you for joining us. Now, first of all, let's start with what the Japanese Prime Minister said during his visit to Indonesia. PM Mr. Suga said that in Southeast Asian countries are key to pursuing Japan's free and open Indo-Pacific or FOIP. This was said during the visit to Indonesia. Tell us more about this and what does this mean for countries like Malaysia?
Well, first of all, good morning and thank you for having me for the programs. And the question about the new Prime Minister of Japan, Suga Yoshihide, he has been Prime Minister's office about a month, and he's now making a first overseas visit, visiting Vietnam and Indonesia. He has been in Prime Minister Abe's the right-hand man, serving as the the cabinet spokesperson for 8 years. So we don't expect any major change, but rather expect a continuation of the policies under the Prime Minister Abe. The choice of the two countries as his maiden overseas visit, Vietnam and Indonesia, is exactly the same country that the Prime Minister Abe chose for his first overseas visit. And also his visit, these countries, they are not the United States or China, this signifies the importance that the cabinet or Japan attached to the relations with ASEAN. So it's natural for him to say when he made a first overseas policy statement in Hanoi that he's going to value the cooperation with ASEAN countries, and he's going to work hand in hand as an equal partner with ASEAN countries for the prosperity and stability in the regions. Now your question is about what we call the free and open Indo-Pacific. The significance of looking two oceans, Indian Oceans and Pacific Oceans, is perhaps easy to understand when you stand on the hill of the Malacca. There you see the lines of the ships passing by the very narrow Strait of Hormuz, carrying the products and materials either from the east to the west or from west to the east. That means from Indian Oceans to Pacific Oceans or vice versa. Now the ASEAN region is going to grow, so importance for maintaining peace and security of the sea lanes connecting these two oceans, Indian Oceans, Pacific Ocean, is going to be more important. So what this vision of Indo-Pacific for the Open Pacific is to agree on the principle how to ensure the peace and stability for this entire regions. There are, as you said, the certain risks we may come across the regions. The risk of terrorism, risk of the natural disasters or smuggling. Of course, we don't know. There are certain political tensions there. But the important thing is that we need to solve all these the risks and problems through international laws, particularly when it comes to the maritime issues, through the international conventions for law of the seas, what we call UNCLOS. So the main message of this strategy or visions or concept of FOIP is to whatever things, the challenges and the problems need to be solved, not by using force or coercions or threat of force, but applying international law. So this is a very simple principle, what is the FOIP is about. This is to establish a rule-based order in the region so that all the countries in the region is going to enjoy the safe and security and prosperity, what is very much needed for this country. And this strategy is open to all the countries, any countries, which sign up for these basic principles. And so the vision is not intended to bring in any division in the regions. On the contrary, this, I believe, is a unifying principle to unite the countries in the regions around the basic principle of the application of laws to solve the problems.
Your Excellency, does this mean that Japan wish to probably insert itself as a third force in this region? We've seen the Western force, also the Eastern force from the biggest economy, the second biggest economy in the world. Is Japan trying to position itself as a third force in the Southeast Asian region to help manage the tension that has been created by certain parties in the South China Sea? Is Japan trying to assert itself as a third force?
Well, Japan has been always in these regions. Ever since for instance, in the case of Malaysia became independent, Japan has steadfastly supporting the stability and so economic growth. This is going to be the case in the future. This applies to all the countries and regions. I just want to mention the importance of it is also well understood. The similar concept was promulgated by ASEAN last year when ASEAN announced the ASEAN outlook for Indo-Pacific Oceans. There are lots of the similarities, commonality between the concept FOIP and AWIP. So we very much like to support the concept of AWIP, and we are looking forward to put in place certain concrete steps and the measures, cooperations to further promote the concept of the rule-based laws systems in the region. And the importance of Malaysia, importance of ASEAN is that of course the centrality of ASEAN, the unity of ASEAN is very much we respect whatever we think about the regions. Always ASEAN in the center, particularly the Indo-Pacific regions. The ASEAN sits in the center, and also Malaysia is also in the center of the ASEAN regions. And also Malaysia defined itself in its first white paper, defense paper, the maritime nations with continental their legacies. So we're very much looking forward to work with Malaysia to put in place all the necessary elements for safety and security and prosperity in the region.
Why is this important, especially during COVID-19?
Well, the COVID-19, we have suffered enormously. We have seen disruptions taking place affecting all aspects of our lives. The movement of people, movement of goods or supply chain has been affected. But of course, we should not be stand still. We have to move on. And COVID-19 provides us good lessons for us to learn, for us to recover from these disruptions of the COVID-19. So we need to strengthen the resilience of the supply chains. What means the strengthen the supply chains? We need to diversify the supply basis, and also we need to establish supply bases closer to the consumption places. So there are very good reasons for Japanese companies come closer to Malaysia, because this is the region where there is a very good growth taking place. And also, interestingly, halal industry, because the halal is regarded even from the eyes of the non-Muslims something very clean and safe. So there are strong interests emerging on the part of the Japanese business in halal. And also the digital industry or digitalization is something which need to look at, because in the post-COVID-19, less contact, the communication needs it. So digital technology will help us to live in this less contact society. So we are now working closely with Malaysian companies and government to introduce digital technologies. But all this, can be made possible against background of if the entire regions are safe and secure. So this FOIP is for us to promote the post-COVID-19 development for Malaysia or for the regions. We need to have a safer and more secure the regional geopolitical background, and this is why we are promoting FOIP. FOIP is for that purpose of safer and security.
Your Excellency, you mentioned a few weeks ago that Malaysia can expect a big boost in investments from Japan if the procedures relating to new investors are further simplified and streamlined. What are some of the pain areas right now?
Well, for instance, of course, it's better for any procedures for applying for the investment to be completed smoother and quicker. So if there is any room for investment on the part of the receiving end of the investment, course, we hope to see more quicker, more, the streamlined procedure will be very much helpful for more investment to come into Malaysia.
Is there a particular area of interest that Japanese companies are looking at right now? I think you mentioned a few weeks ago as well, healthcare, health, and also technology, digital technology?
Yes. Well, in spite of the COVID-19, the basic attractiveness of Malaysia for Japanese investment remains unchanged. For instance, very skillful workforce, the very easy communications in English, and the lack of the natural disasters. We don't see any earthquake here in Malaysia. So all this fundamental attractiveness stays with us, and also the geographical, the centrality of Malaysia. While the manufacturing areas are found in the electricity and electronics, because in Malaysia about 40% of exports is found in this E&E areas. So naturally, this is the area where traditional mainstay of the Japanese investment is found. This will continue to be the case. But there are new areas, as you said, the medical areas, or creating medical devices, or the digital industries, or services industries, or halal industry. So there is lots of the new areas open up for Japanese investment.
Surely there are areas that have yet to be explored by both nations, especially right now looking at how COVID-19 has forced a lot of countries and a lot of companies to look at new ways of doing business, new areas of investment. Do you believe there are some areas that have yet to be explored by both countries, Malaysia and Japan?
Well, perhaps how to introduce the digital technologies for the production site or actual service is something we need to put the additional emphasis. And we are working with the Malaysian government to share our expertise, how we can make use of digital technology in the production site, particularly by SMEs, because the strength of the Malaysia lies in very much qualified the SME supply chains. So in order to enhance the productivity of the Malaysian economy as a whole, raising the productivity of SMEs are crucial, and the key lies in how to introduce the digital technologies. So now we are working on it.
Your Excellency, let's take a short break. When we come back, let's talk about these 1,500 Japanese companies employing around 340,000 employees in Malaysia. And of course, the companies have contributed to the development of this country. Did they let go of any employees, any of their workers during the MCO? And what are some of their plans moving forward? Are they here to stay for good? Let's talk about that when we come back, Your Excellency. Bertemu kembali, kita bersama dengan Tuan Yang Terutama Duta Besar Jepun ke Malaysia, Hiroshi Oka. Your Excellency, I think let's look at the 1,500 Japanese companies employing around 340,000 employees in Malaysia. What happened to them during the MCO? Did they let go, or did they let go of any of their employees during the MCO? And what's next for them?
Well, about 1,500 Japanese companies are now operating in Malaysia. The manufacturing sector alone producing 340,000 the employment daily basis. And thanks to the Malaysian government support measures like the wage subsidies, and also Japanese company values the long-term relationship between the companies and the employees. So to my knowledge, I haven't been made aware of any instance of the employees have been laid off. So no one has been laid off? Well, as far as we know, that I don't think there haven't been any major people losing job out of the Japanese companies. But did you talk to these employers? What are some of their concerns right now, especially during COVID-19? What are some of their concerns that they shared with you? Because of the COVID-19, the domestic demand is not strong, so that means the cash flow is very much limited compared as the normal. So they are kind of finding difficulty of paying the salaries or paying rents, etc. But again, thanks to the government, the supporting measures, the Japanese companies are hanging on. And of course, once the situation stabilizes, as I have been trying to say, the Malaysia presents a very good opportunities for the Japanese investment. So I hope that the investment will grasp and catch the emerging opportunities found in Malaysia, in the traditional electricity and areas as well as the newly emerging areas.
And Your Excellency, I just have to ask this, are these companies worried about maybe the political development in this country right now? Are they rethinking about whether they should continue to invest in this country, especially with what's happening in the political or with regards to the political development in this country?
Of course, from the perspective of the investors, the stability in many sense matters. But when it comes to the Malaysian situations, ever since independence, there has been no military coup d'etat stages, and there is the civilian control is in place. And even the change of government, when we witnessed 2 years ago, 2018, there has been the blood has been shed. So we regard whatever happens in the political arenas, Malaysia is a fundamentally stable place. Add to that, of course, as I have been saying, that the Malaysia's no natural disaster, the good workforce, the high quality supply chain, etc. So I don't think that Malaysia is losing attractiveness from the eyes of the Japanese investors.
The plans to establish the branch campus of Japan's Tsukuba University in Malaysia is set to be on track and also expected to be fully operational by 2023. No more major delays are expected as everybody is eager to bring this project to reality. That was what was reported. What do you think both countries can achieve with this new university? What kind of cooperation do you see or do you foresee moving forward with the establishment of the Tsukuba University?
The branch campus of Tsukuba University, Tsukuba University, one of the leading Japanese universities, and produces 3 Nobel winners. And if this is going to be established, then this is going to be the first ever Japanese university's overseas branch. So this is a ringing endorsement of the Malaysia's environment, the educational environment. Now we are having discussion with the Malaysian government and the universities. We hope the Malaysia Tsukuba University's branch campus is going to be established without any delay. The significance of the established branch campus lies in the emphasis we have been putting in place in the bilateral relations between Japan and Malaysia in the field of education or human capacity building. Ever since the Lucas policy was launched in 1982, for the last 40 years, the educations and the human capacity building has been the pillar of our cooperations between the two countries. The two seminal institutions are already in place. One is the Japan-Malaysia Technical Institute. The other one is the Malaysia-Japan International Institutes for Technologies. These two institutions are designed to bring in Japanese-style engineering educations to Malaysia so that we can contribute to upskill the Malaysian people. And what's different from the Tsukuba University branch campus from these two important institutions is that bringing in the Japanese university itself into Malaysia is the difference between these two, the very much leading Japanese, human capacity development institutions found in Malaysia. So not only the Malaysian students, but even the students from the regional countries can learn this Tsukuba University branch campus. And this is going to make the Malaysia hub for the educational hub for the region. So we are looking forward to seeing the branch campus established soon. I just want to mention the size of the educational exchange because that is the actual bridge between the two countries. Ever since Lucas policy was launched in 1982, as many as 8,000 Malaysian students has come to Japan for higher educations, and we have received as many as 16,000 the Malaysians count for the receiving training. So these people are now coming back to Malaysia and working at the forefront of either the businesses or the government. So they are the human bridge between these two countries. So we very much like the see the importance of education and human capacity development between the two countries.
And Your Excellency, Japan has committed 165 million US dollars in funds for its participation in the WHO's COVID-19 vaccine program, COVAX, and is aimed at helping buy and fairly distribute vaccination shots against the novel or the COVID-19 around the world. Why do you think it's important for Japan and other countries, including Malaysia, to participate in COVAX, especially when Japan is a rich country, the third biggest economy in the world? Why not just have a bilateral agreement with the pharma companies out there, like what some of the countries are doing? Why is Japan being part of this COVAX development?
Well, the COVID-19 is, cannot choose the country. So this is a kind of that goes anywhere. So in order for us to address the COVID-19, so we have to make sure all the countries in the world, either rich country or poor countries, everybody need to have an access to the vaccine. Otherwise, we cannot feel safe. So that is the kind of basic thinking that all the countries, all the people in the world need to have affordable access to vaccine. And this is exactly the kind of thinking expressed by the Prime Minister, the Muhyiddin, during the last ASEAN Summit meeting, when he said the affordability, accessibility for vaccines is the key for the addressing COVID-19. We very much wholeheartedly support the statement. So on that basis, there is an international framework, what is called COVAX, which the WHO is playing a central role. All the countries are making a contribution to make sure that the people in the world have an access to vaccines. I thought it makes sense for us to make a contribution to the world so that every country or every people in the world have an access to a vaccine. That's a contribution. And also in that too, as an extension of that thinking, we are now working to establish what we call the ASEAN, the Infectious Disease Center. This is in response to the initiative by ASEAN countries to establish the new infection focus center, because again, the regional corporations needed to address whatever infections or the COVID-19 or new infections take place. The regional corporations is needed to early detections and the accumulation of the expertise, knowledge, and to have a coordinated response. Now we are working on the feasibility study. We have funded $15 million for the purposes on the construction of the future buildings. And we expect that when the ASEAN summit is going to take place at the coming November, there's going to be a consensus and the official launch of the ASEAN Center.
We look forward to that, Your Excellency. And Your Excellency, Japan is also planning to remove a ban on overseas travel to China in 11 other countries, including Malaysia, next month. Any details on that so far?
Well, the balancing the safety and also the economy is very much delicate things. But we have to say that the movement of the people is vital for the revitalization of economy. So on that basis, starting from September the 8th, with agreement of the Malaysian government, we have started accepting the business travelers from Malaysia, either short-term or long-term, or certain conditions. Then starting from October the 1st, we expanded the scope of the movement of people coming in from Malaysia to Japan, in addition to business travelers for short-term basis, long-term basis. Now the students or the accompanying families are able to come to Japan. For instance, JPA, Lucas Policy students, the 160 students are now able to come to Japan, making use of this framework. For us to further encourage the movement of people, perhaps we will need to put in place the framework so that the people will not need to spend the 14 days quarantine period by having additional conditions or measures. So we have put in place this kind of what we call the business, for the cross-border movement of people with Singapore. And the announcement was made during Prime Minister's visit to Vietnam. So in the need of the very strong business need between Japan and Malaysia to have a kind of more convenient cross-border movement, we are now in touch with the Malaysian government so that cross-border movement of people without the 14 days, the quarantine people will be made possible by having additional necessary the conditions.
Okay, and Your Excellency, lastly, when can we expect the new Prime Minister to visit Malaysia and to meet with Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin? Is there plans for that to happen?
Well, of course, from my point of view, I wish that he could have added the Malaysia as a first leg of tours in addition to the Vietnam and Indonesia. But because of the tight schedule, the Parliament is going to convene as soon as he returns back to Japan. But given the very strong bondage of friendship between Japan and Malaysia, and also the strategic partnership relations between Japan and Malaysia, we're looking forward to the summit meeting to take place either in Japan or Malaysia.
And Your Excellency, this is your first year here, right, in this country?
Yes.
What is your impression of the country so far, and where do you think both countries can move forward to, especially post-COVID-19, whenever that is? What more potentials can both these countries explore?
Well, I have been fascinated every day by the diversity of this country, the people and the culture, even the food. So I've never been bored, even under the difficult, challenging MCO period. And again, we need to stress that the people-to-people long-term exchanges has created a unique strength to the Japan-Malaysia relationship. So whatever happens, as long as the solid basis of the friendship between these two countries based on the exchange of the people gives us a very much strength in the future. So we are looking forward to building on this basic solid friendship relations, the piling of the lots of the future relations, either business, either expanded areas, education or human capacity developments, or even the security cooperation, etc. There is a very much ample fertile ground for us to expand cooperation as a strategic partnership in the regions to make sure the security and safety and the prosperity in the region. Not working for our own sake, but the Malaysia, Japan joining forces to work for the stability and security in the region as well.
On that note, thank you very much, Your Excellency, Duta Besar Jepun ke Malaysia, Tuan Yang Terutama Hiroshi Oka, membincangkan berkenaan dengan hubungan kedua negara dan juga ASEAN dan Jepun. Saya Rizal Zulkapli, salam hormat.